All right, guys, we've got major stuff to get to regarding the realignment situation. Of course, it is week 1 of college football. Crazy videos are coming out today, but how about this? Where does Florida State fit in? The Seminoles football academics on the rise as the realignment rumors swirl. So this individual poses a very unique question, and it's like, we've all just assumed North Carolina, Florida State to the SEC, Miami to the SEC, Clemson to the SEC. But if these teams could choose where they would go, would we be seeing specifically Florida State and North Carolina want to go to the Big Ten due to the whole academic situation? I didn't realize how much Florida State was improving the academic side of their football program, and I think I've got so much respect for Florida State. Unfortunately, the coaching situation, I've said before, it's just a matter of time before Deion is hired. That's another conversation for another day, but Deion Sanders will be the coach of Florida State week 1 of next year. I know that, and Travis Hunter will be playing for Florida State week 1 of next year. But let's take a look at this. The academics for Florida State, FSU is a university on the rise. The Seminoles have vaulted in the U.S. News and World Report best colleges rankings over the past 6 years, from 43 all the way inside of the top 20, fueled by some of the best graduation and freshman retention ranks nationally. It's also important to hear the Seminoles are focusing on their big picture plan, whether that's remaining in the ACC or testing SEC or Big Ten interest. So, of course, we all assumed the triggers and the moves, the Big Ten West Wing, the Big 12 adding the teams from the Pac-12, and then the SEC possibly dipping their feet into the ACC. I think the only way this situation resolves, if the ACC does get the 8 teams to dissolve, it would, in my opinion, you would have 4 teams going to the Big Ten, and I understand that would put the Big Ten at 24 teams, but to me, this is the only way it works. The Big Ten goes to 24 teams. The SEC obviously would go to 20 teams, because then you would have 8 teams agree to dissolve the conference and have better landing spots. Of course, my endgame prediction had 4 teams from the ACC going to the SEC and then another 4 teams going to the Big 12, which doesn't make a ton of sense considering the Big 12 is just not going to generate a great TV deal because they don't have any crazy huge universities. That's what's holding the Big 12 back. They're going to be, if they get to 16 teams, even San Diego State maybe goes to the Big 12. Certainly I could see that. It's a very competitive conference with a ton of parity. I mean, I did a power ranking or a tier ranking, whatever it's called. That conference is impressive. It's going to be competitive, but there is no team in that conference that brings a ton of revenue, like Texas, like Oklahoma, like Ohio State, like Clemson at this point, like FSU in terms of ratings, things like that. You can't just look and say Baylor is an attractive program because they're winning and they've got a good coach and things like that. You also have to have the ratings, you have to have the fan base, you have to have the full package. The Big 12 doesn't have one of those teams. So the idea the Big 12 is going to take teams away from the ACC doesn't make sense to me right now because it's only actually going to dilute their conference even further, which I'm guessing however many teams are in the Big 12, they wouldn't like that because they would be getting paid less money to be adding teams. But this is very interesting. Where would FSU prefer to go if they're really about academics? Obviously, they don't have the AAU membership, and we're going to get to that here. It says, let's try to figure this out with the SEC and Big Ten expanding to 16 teams by 2025, leading to 2 super conferences. The ACC will tumble further behind, especially in revenue and things like that. The conference can't make a move until it can add significant money. ACC schools are locked into their contracts through 2036. An exit fee could reportedly exceed $100 million. I think it's more than $100 million. The deal is over a decade. It's actually, well, if it's 2036, that's 14 years. You want to get out of that contract, it's going to be a ton. It says that leads us to Notre Dame. Notre Dame, even with one national title. So we know the Notre Dame situation. And guys, why do people keep saying, they keep talking about on-field success for Notre Dame? None of that matters when we're talking about realignment. Now, obviously, if Notre Dame wins 3 games and then becomes less popular and recruits worse, then it matters, yes. But this whole idea because Notre Dame only wins 9 or 10 games and they lose all their New Year's 6 games, it does not matter. They are still going to be relevant in terms of college football realignment because of the amount of money they're bringing in. Them not winning a national title does not matter in terms of realignment. As long as they keep winning enough games, which they've been doing. Even without winning any of these big, huge bowl games, they haven't won a single one since 2000 or whenever. They are just known. They win enough. I mean, they've made some New Year's 6 games. They faced Oklahoma State last year. This idea that Notre Dame, because they don't win national titles, winning a national title is like Notre Dame would be more wanted for the Big Ten in terms of realignment or expansion than Alabama. That's not even a question. And if you think differently, you are not gauging the realignment idea properly. It's all about money. Alabama is definitely a better football program at this point, certainly. It's not only about football. And yes, being a better football program does elevate your overall brand and value, but there's so many different parts to it. There's so many different AAU membership. So if you guys remember, I shared that. We'll see if I can get it. The 538 article where they did a deep dive on the, having an AAU membership. Florida State was one of the top schools that was in contention. Could they join the SEC or Big Ten or whatever, that didn't have the AAU membership. It says, of course, there's also the matter of the AAU, this exclusive club of prestigious academic distinction, features 64 universities in the USA and 2 in Canada, and is empowered to attract adequate sums of research dollars. And Florida State apparently is trying to join that, but it's a long process. You can't just join it. You've got to be voted in, something like that. So it says, bottom line, all eyes are on expansion and survival. The first step for FSU is to, so this is where they talk about having a good year. Guys, I watched Florida State against Duquesne. That is not a talented roster. And people were like, they were like, whatever, they won 47-7, it's good. I don't care about an FCS game. I'm not looking at the score of an FCS game. I'm looking at your roster talent, and I did not see a lot of talent on that FSU roster. I really think Florida State will be hiring Deion Sanders at some point within the coming year. Guys, Deion Sanders with Florida State, the fit couldn't be better. If I could put money down on it right now, it's going to happen. They're going to go 6-6, maybe 7-5. I think they probably lose to LSU, even though I don't think LSU is going to be very good. They probably lose to LSU on that Sunday night game. And it is interesting. So Florida State, the Big Ten versus the SEC, I still think it's more likely they go to the SEC. But if it plays out how I think it's going to play out, we could see the Big Ten going to 24 teams as the SEC goes to 20 teams, because you would need 8 teams to dissolve the conference, and you would have, more than likely, if you need 8 teams in the ACC, those 8 teams would have to have landing spots that would be beneficial to them and would be reason to nuke the conference. So we all know the grant of rights deal, something has to be done. I think ESPN, and according to ESPN's big-time executive, there's a lot of motivation for ESPN to keep the ACC together, which could mean ESPN is going to pump more money into the ACC and give those teams better deals. But let's just say that doesn't happen, whatever. They agree to dissolve. I think it's more likely the Big Ten gets 4 teams from the ACC, and there's so many fits. I mean, Virginia's a great fit. North Carolina is an amazing fit for the Big Ten. I know the SEC also wants North Carolina. But I think for the SEC, I'm going to throw this team out there. I think Louisville is a really good fit for the SEC. I want to hear what people have to say about that. But that's just my opinion on the whole realignment situation. Maybe Louisville, Miami, Clemson, definitely. Clemson, with their academics where it is, they're SEC all the way. Miami is SEC. I know like Florida apparently hates Miami. They probably don't want them in the SEC. But at the end of the day, it's like, you have to take someone. If you want to get to 20 teams, you would have to take someone. And I think the SEC has to be at least a little angry about this whole realignment situation. The Big Ten, in my opinion, has done what the SEC probably wanted to do, in theory. Because the Big Ten commands all the time zones. If they do the West Wing, they completely revolutionize college football. They have 4 time zones of elite games, and they already have NBC, CBS, and Fox in all 3 windows. You bring ESPN back to the negotiation table. You have them take the 10:30 game. Now you have, Penn State at Oregon kicking off at 10:30. You have USC at Ohio State at 7:30. You have Penn State playing Wisconsin at 3:30. You've got Iowa playing Minnesota at noon. It's just there's so many good teams in that conference if they establish a West Wing, which I think they'll do. And then they could also go to 24 teams to help facilitate the ACC teams dissolving their grant of rights deal. Of course, we know they need 8 teams to do that. So guys, that's the latest realignment stuff. We've got Florida State. Their academic standards are getting better. Perhaps they're more interested in the Big Ten. I still think right now, especially without that AAU membership, their best bet is the SEC. And it would be something like Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and Louisville possibly going to the SEC. Louisville, amazing basketball program. Not great at football, although they do have a fun quarterback. And then, guys, I find these interesting things. So this is the highest AP ranking of each Power 5 team since 2014. So, guys, go to the bottom, and you see the teams that have not been ranked a single time since 2014 in the AP poll. And then you have Purdue. So I don't know if this is right, but I believe Purdue was ranked 25th the week after they beat Ohio State like 49-20, the Rondale Moore game, things like that. That crazy night game where I think Haskins threw 73 passes, and they were I think they were 4-3 or something. Like, they were not a good team, but they ended up getting ranked. Texas Tech was ranked at some point. Were they ranked last year? Maryland, I remember the Maryland type, 2 games into the season, they were ranked 21st. Duke was ranked 19th. Was that maybe with Daniel Jones? But it's just cool to see some of these teams. And how about Colorado was ranked 9th? I do not remember that at all. Kansas State was ranked 9th. Since 2014, Indiana was ranked 7th. That had to have been the pandemic year. But this stuff is Utah was Utah ranked 3rd last year? Some of these teams get ranked. I know Iowa was ranked 2nd last year. Yeah, there's Iowa. Michigan State. Louisville was ranked 3rd. That was with Lamar Jackson. USC was ranked 3rd, maybe with Sam Darnold at the beginning of his junior season. You guys, Miami ranked 2nd. Miami was probably the worst. I remember that season with Miami. I believe they were 11-0. They faced nobody. That might have been the season they destroyed Notre Dame. I don't know. But then they faced Pittsburgh in front of about 200 people at Heinz Field on Black Friday. Or maybe it was the Thursday before Black Friday and they lost, and Pittsburgh was 3-9. It was a crazy. But that is, and then all the teams that were ranked number 1. Mississippi State, probably the most surprising with Dak Prescott. That was the initial playoffs. So that was in 2014. FSU, I believe, was since 2014, FSU. That had to have been 2014 when they were ranked number 1 with Jameis. Yeah, it had to have been 2014. Georgia, obviously very recent. LSU. Ohio State was 2015 when they were last ranked number 1 because they had won the national title. And then they had that whole debacle with the starting quarterback situation. But nonetheless, this is an interesting little trip down memory lane. Either way, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.